name's John Vollemer, and welcome to the Auckland University Flat White 5. 5 questions, 5 answers from interesting, experienced, inspiring alumni around the world. My guest today needs no introduction whatsoever. He's the Director General of Health, the Curve Crusher himself, and also the one of the winners of this year's Distinguished Alumni Awards from the university itself. Dr. Ashley Bloomfield, welcome.
Kia ora, thanks very much.
No problem. Obviously, you've got one of the most difficult jobs in the entire country, that's for sure. What, apart from coffee, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Oh, well, I have to say I'm a bit of a lifer in health, so I've been in the game for a while now. And I dare say when I took on the role of Director General of Health just over 3 years ago, they didn't say during the interview that I would be having to lead the health response to a once in 100-year global pandemic. So I guess the first thing that gets me out of bed every morning is there's a lot to do. But the thing that really motivates me is, I actually really love my job. It is a privilege, and the people I work with are just fantastic. And I guess that's sometimes you get asked the question, what's the best job you've ever had? And the only right answer should be the job I'm in now, because every job you're in should be the best job you've ever had. And if it's not, it's time to find the next job. So look, I love the people I work with. The work is just so interesting. And, I made that switch from clinical medicine to public health over 20 years ago now. And people say, do you miss clinical medicine? Well, no, I love the idea of being able to improve and protect the health of big groups of people and the whole population. And, the last year has given us an extraordinary opportunity to do that.
If I rewind you back to Ashley, who's sitting there in a university lecture hall today, is there any advice that you would give to that guy sitting there, studying away as hard as possible for what's out there for their future?
Yeah, well, the first bit of advice I would give would go and get your eyes tested in year 2 instead of waiting till 6th year. I sort of covered the fact that my eyesight was deteriorating as I just moved from a first year being one of the larrikins in the back row at medical school to right up in the front row and still copying the notes off the person next to me before I finally admitted I needed to get my eyes tested. So that's a very practical thing. Look, I guess the other thing is, in a way, this is what I've done is it's about your formal training and what you're learning through your degree, but it's also all those other life experiences. And university, of course, provides a great opportunity to gather up a whole range of different experiences. And so the advice I'm giving to uni students now is, yes, enjoy your study and study something you love, but there's a whole lot else on offer there. And one of the things I think that's changed since I was at university is there's been a shift in the sorts of things students are involved in to ones that are much more engaged with local communities, contributing back. The great example is the development of the Student Volunteer Army after the Christchurch earthquake. So we're seeing students more engaged in giving back to community. I think it's a great thing. But there is also those other things, the skiing club, the tramping club, that chance to just learn about life and learn about different ideas. That's the opportunity. So, maybe if I went back, I'd perhaps spend a little less time at the pub and a bit more time at doing some of these other activities.
You mentioned that actually during the Alumni Awards, and I wondered, was that the Globe Hotel at the...
Oh, mate, it was the Kiwi Tavern back in those days. It's long gone now, but I dare say we were pretty frequent customers there, and they got a fair bit of our student allowances to go through their tills.
Yes, yeah. Remember the days you used to get paid to actually go to university? Those were happy days. Those well in the past. I mean, and I think you're right. Students are perhaps a lot more healthy actually now than what they were or what we used to be up to. Just on that note, actually, what was your? Do you have a favorite memory of sort of the best thing that happened while you were there, or the worst thing that happened while you were there, or something unusual that happened when you were at outside of the pub and in the university itself?
Yeah, well, look, university time is a really amazing time of your life, isn't it? I can remember my daughter, who's now just, recently qualified as an engineer last year, saying, student life, crazy but fun. It is a really special time, and I just have great memories of my time in the hostel. Actually, was at Grafton Hall there, trekking down the road in first year every year down to our lectures on the main campus, and then. So the sort of stuff we'd get up to, fun activities, rugby games against the engineering school we would have as med school, a lot of fun over in the medical school. As a social rep in second year, I was responsible with a mate of mine for organising some of that fun, and there was plenty of chaos. But it is an amazing time of your life, and some people have said to me, do you regret going to Auckland instead of Otago? I had the opportunity to go there, and well, no, not at all. Auckland was a fantastic place to be a student, and not just in the halls of residence, but flatting around different parts of Auckland. And it's got a lot going for it, and possibly one of our kids heading up there next year. And I sort of said to him, I said, actually, you had a lot of fun at university in Auckland. I could see you having a good time there.
Well, I can imagine. And did any one particular faculty tend to win that rugby match more than the other one, or was it even?
Look, the memories may be a bit vague now, but I'm sure we used to thrash the engineers every year. Yeah, that may not be their memory. And we had a disadvantage. Remembering at this time, and this was, I started medical school in 1984, over half the students in the class were female and had been for some time. And I think at that time, engineering was 1 or 2%. It's changed now. As I said, my daughter's just gone through Canterbury, and that was a quarter of the class were female. But even then, it's almost one of the last bastions of the professional degrees that's still very heavily male dominated. So they might have thought they had an advantage back then in the mid-80s, but I'm pretty sure we used to take it to them every year.
And now, if you were to do it all over again, would you, is there a completely different career that perhaps you might go off and go do something totally different? Is there anything along those lines at all?
Well, I have to say I love my work, and one of the things I love about my job now is I had that huge privilege of studying medicine, of working clinically, and that's just an amazing thing to be able to do. But then that what for me was that opened up the horizon, studying public health and actually seeing health and society through a whole lot of different lenses that I hadn't been trained in through a very scientific biomedical sort of education. And then that opportunity to work in the public service. And, as I sort of say, joke to people, I brought my wife and first young baby down to Wellington and from Auckland in the end of 1997 for 6 months, and we're still here. And mostly that's about just loving working in the public service. So it's hard to think of a career outside the public service. But I dare say, when we did take our oldest to the open day for engineering in Canterbury University about 6 years ago, my wife and I sat there. Libby, my wife, had also studied medicine at Auckland. We were in the same year, and said, "Gosh, engineering seems really interesting. If we had our time again, we'd look serious at doing that." And it's been lovely to see both our oldest and actually our next one's also studying engineering and really enjoying that. I think it's a fantastic degree.
Have you ever sort of called upon sort of mentors, or is there someone that you go to for advice, or apart from Mrs. Bloomfield, of course, but someone that sort of helps you along and dusts you off and goes, "Don't worry, it's all going to be okay." Back you go out there. Is there anyone along those sorts of lines? You don't need to name them, of course, but
yeah. Well, I mean, a couple of thoughts there. One is I've been really fortunate to have, as I've gone through my career, people senior to me who have nurtured me and guided and coached me really, and provided experiences and given, thrust me into situations and stretched me, which has been great. And I'm the sort of person who tends to say, "Yep, I'll give that a crack." So those people are critical. Those leaders who are thinking about succession planning, who are leading with humility, who are looking out for the staff underneath them. And so you sort of pick the people who you look at their leadership qualities and you think, actually, I want to work for that person. I want to learn from that person. But another thing that's been fundamental for me is having a coach, actually. And when I got my first chief exec role, actually, when I first got into a tier 2 role in the Ministry of Health, maybe over 10 years ago now, well over 10 years ago, it was a 3-month acting role, and I thought, right, and I got a coach and met weekly, and just every week we'd go through and say, what's gone well, what's not gone well, what do I need to work on, and then when I've got into chief executive roles, it's a different person, but I've kept a coach right through actually over the last 5 years, and we just met earlier this week for 6 weeks, and for an hour every 6 weeks, and we just go through stuff really, and sometimes it's a bit of a download, but also, he's just able to sit there and reflect back and provide his wisdom, but also just that fundamental challenge of leadership, probably the hardest of the 3 domains of leadership to manage is managing self, or leading self, and so just keeping ourselves on track and how we lead ourselves.
No, very true words. Very, very true words. I think at this particular juncture, I think there's a lot of people in that category. Just on self-reflection, it's karaoke night. Do you have a favourite song that you would sing, or something along those kinds of lines?
Absolutely. I should start by saying I am a huge karaoke fan, and I'm well known at the ministry for getting up there at our Christmas parties. We always get a karaoke machine and have a great deal of fun. It's Friday, I'm in Love by The Cure is always a good starter, but I usually get pulled into a few duets as well, so pretty much anything, but that's always my go-to song at the start of the evening.
I mean, just as a final question, I mean, so you're on a desert island somewhere, you can only take one album, or what we used to call albums, one stream, shall we say. Who would you take with you?
Well, I'm a Bruce fan, and of course the Bruce most people will think of, and yes, I'm a big fan. I've been to 4 of his concerts, Bruce Springsteen. But there's a Canadian musician called Bruce Cockburn. He's an absolutely fantastic singer-songwriter. He's been around. He's been doing it for probably 4 decades. Anything by him, he's been, kind of one of those artists that I've followed all his albums right through my life. So Bruce Cockburn, first album of his I got was called Stealing Fire. He's a beautiful guitarist, probably one of the best in the world, actually, acoustic guitarist, great singer, and an awesome guy.
So there you have it. Get your eyes checked, get yourself a mentor, and check out the 2 Bruces. Ashley Bloomfield, this has been your Flat White 5.
Thanks very much. Kia ora.